The night was supposed to be perfect. The long-awaited Sandokan premiere, a night of flashing lights, red carpets, and unstoppable applause. Months of anticipation had led to this moment. Fans had been waiting not just for the series, but for Yaman's grand return to the screen after years of silence, tension, and whispered rumors. As the crowd gathered outside the theater, the atmosphere was electric. Photographers pushed against barriers, reporters shouted questions, and fans held up banners with Can's name written in gold. It wasn't just another premiere, it was an event that felt like history in the making, but no one could have predicted what would happen next. Just after sunset, a black car stopped in front of the red carpet. The doors opened, and the world froze. Yaman stepped out. Tall, confident, his expression unreadable. His suit, a dark, tailored piece with a subtle shimmer, caught the camera lights with every movement. The crowd screamed, chanting his name. Can echoed through the street, but something was off. Usually, Can greeted the press with his signature half-smile, calm but charming. Tonight, though, his face was serious, almost distant. He looked around for a moment, nodded politely to a few photographers, and started walking. Alone, that was the first surprise of the night, because everyone had been expecting him to arrive with someone, maybe his co-star, maybe his rumored partner, maybe even a special guest. But no. He walked alone, his steps slow, deliberate, almost rehearsed. The flashes went wild. Every outlet wanted the first perfect shot. Italian TV reporters whispered into their mics, "He's here. Alone. No date. No co-star. What does this mean?" Then, suddenly, it happened. As he reached the center of the red carpet, a second car pulled up. A moment of confusion rippled through the crowd. The door opened, and a familiar figure stepped out. She was stunning, elegant, calm, yet her eyes betrayed a nervous energy. The whispers began immediately. Some said it was one of the actresses from the show. Others thought it might be an unexpected guest. But when the cameras zoomed in, gasps echoed from every direction. It was Demet Özdemir. The world's breath caught in its throat. She hadn't been officially linked to Sandokan, hadn't appeared in any of the promotional material, hadn't even been seen near the production. Yet here she was, walking the same red carpet, minutes after Can, her dress glimmering under the lights, every eye locked on her. Reporters went into a frenzy. "Demet, are you here for Can? Is this a surprise appearance? Are you two talking again?" She didn't answer. She just smiled softly and kept walking, her gaze occasionally flicking toward him, the man she once loved, the man she hadn't been seen with in years. When Can noticed her, his steps faltered for the first time. A quick look, just a second, but long enough for the cameras to catch it. Long enough to send the internet into chaos. Inside the theater, tension filled the air. The audience didn't know whether to focus on the premiere or the silent reunion that had just unfolded before them. Social media was exploding already. Hashtags like #CanandDemet, #Sandokan premiere, and #unexpected moment were trending within minutes. No one knew why she was there. No one knew who had invited her, but everyone knew one thing: whatever was about to happen that night would change everything, because that look between them, just one look, carried years of love, heartbreak, and questions left unanswered. Inside the Grand Theater, the air was thick with perfume, tension, and whispered speculation. The crowd had barely recovered from the shock of seeing Demet Özdemir walk the same red carpet as Yaman. No one knew what to make of it. Was it a coincidence, or had it been planned all along? Can moved through the crowd, offering polite smiles, shaking hands, posing for a few photos. Yet, his eyes kept drifting, scanning the room, as if searching for something. Or someone. Demet had taken her seat on the opposite side of the hall, surrounded by producers, actors, and photographers. But she could feel his gaze long before she saw him. Every flash of a camera, every murmur of her name brought back old memories she thought she had buried. She hadn't planned to come. That much was true. The invitation had been sent weeks ago, a generic PR gesture, nothing more. But something inside her told her she needed to be there. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe closure. Or maybe, something deeper. As the lights dimmed and the trailer for Sandokan began to play, the room fell silent. The screen lit up with the first scenes, Can, rugged and wild, in his element, commanding the screen with the same intensity that once drew the world to him. Applause echoed through the hall. Yet Demet sat still, her heart pounding. Watching him play that role, fierce, magnetic, untamed, felt strangely familiar. It wasn't just acting. It was him. The same fire she had once seen up close. Halfway through the screening, something unexpected happened. During one of the quieter scenes, when the music softened and the audience leaned in, Ken glanced toward the audience, almost instinctively. His eyes found her. It lasted only a second. But that 1 second was enough to send 1,000 thoughts racing through both their minds. Behind the scenes, whispers started spreading among the staff. "Did you see her? Did you see how he looked at her?" one assistant whispered. Another added, "It's like time stopped. He wasn't acting anymore." When the screening ended, the applause was thunderous. The cast stood up for the curtain call, and Ken took the stage to thank everyone. Cameras flashed, journalists leaned forward, and fans screamed his name. But then, in the middle of his speech, something subtle yet powerful happened. He paused, just for a heartbeat, and looked straight into the crowd, and there she was. The applause softened. His tone changed. "This project means a lot to me," he said, his voice steady but loaded. "Not just because of the story, but because of what it represents: courage, love, and unfinished chapters." The audience clapped again, unaware of the true meaning behind his words, but Demet understood. Her breath caught, her chest tightening. Unfinished chapters. As the event moved to the after party, the tension only grew. Reporters tried to corner both of them, asking if they had spoken. Demet politely avoided the questions. Ken smiled but said nothing. Their silence only made the mystery deeper. Later, as the crowd thinned, a few people noticed something strange. Behind the heavy velvet curtains of the theater's side corridor, two familiar figures stood close, away from the cameras, away from the noise. It was them. No microphones, no audience. Just Can and Demet. At first, they didn't speak. The silence was heavy, filled with all the things left unsaid for years. She looked at him, her eyes glimmering in the soft backstage light. "You didn't tell anyone I'd be here, did you?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "I didn't even know you'd come." Her lips trembled slightly. "I almost didn't." Then, for the first time in a long time, he smiled, a real one, small but full of emotion. "But you did." There was no script this time. No cameras. No pretending. Just two hearts standing in the same room again after years apart. And though no one in the audience could see it, that moment, hidden behind the red curtains, would become the real story of the night, the one that no one was supposed to see. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The noise from the theater was fading, replaced by the muffled sound of cameras clicking in the distance. The only light in the corridor came from a single lamp flickering above them, painting their faces in soft golden shadow. Demet looked at him carefully, her voice low. "You look different." Ken chuckled faintly, but it wasn't humor, it was pain. "Everyone keeps saying that." "You are," she continued, taking a step closer. "But not in a bad way. It's like, you've been carrying something all this time." He paused, his jaw tightening. "Maybe because I have." Her eyes softened. "Sandokan?" He shook his head slowly. "No. You." The silence between them grew heavy, the kind that demands truth. He took a breath, his voice quieter now. "That night, when everything fell apart, when we both said things we didn't mean, I thought walking away would make it easier. That maybe if I buried it deep enough, it would stop hurting." He hesitated, his hand brushing through his hair. "But it didn't. It just changed shape." Demet swallowed hard. "You think it was easy for me? Seeing you everywhere, in headlines, on billboards, smiling like nothing happened. Do you know what that felt like?" He looked at her with a mix of regret and tenderness. "Probably the same way it felt for me, pretending I'd moved on when I hadn't." Her breath caught. There it was, the truth, finally spoken aloud. The hum of the hallway filled the silence again. She turned away slightly, blinking fast, trying not to let the tears fall. "You're saying all this now, but what difference does it make? We can't just go back." Ken stepped closer, his voice low but intense. "I'm not asking to go back." He waited until she looked at him. "I just don't want to keep pretending that what we had wasn't real." Her lips parted as if to respond, but she couldn't. Instead, her gaze dropped to the floor. For a moment, the weight of the past pressed down on both of them, the fame, the misunderstandings, the pride that had cost them everything. Then, faint applause echoed from the main hall again, people still celebrating the premiere, unaware that the real drama was unfolding just a few steps away. Demet took a deep breath. "You've changed," she repeated softly. "Maybe," he said, smiling sadly. "But the part that remembers you never did." She looked up at him again, her eyes glassy but steady. "Do you know why I came tonight?" He shook his head. She hesitated, then said, "Because I wanted to see if the look in your eyes when you saw me that night was still there." He blinked, as if caught off guard. "And?" Her voice trembled. "It was." Ken exhaled slowly, almost like he'd been holding his breath for years. "Demet," he whispered, his tone soft, careful, almost afraid to hope. But before he could say more, they heard footsteps, a production assistant calling for him, reporters asking where he'd gone. The spell broke. The world outside the curtain was waiting, loud and relentless. Demet straightened her posture, wiping the tear that had escaped. "You should go," she said quietly. "They're waiting for you." He didn't move. "And you?" She smiled weakly. "I was never supposed to be here anyway." She turned to leave, but just before disappearing behind the side door, she stopped. Without looking back, she said, "Congratulations, Ken. You deserve everything you've worked for." He stood there, silent, watching her silhouette fade into the light of the hallway, the same way he had watched her walk away years ago. Only this time, the applause in the background sounded different. Hollow. Distant, because the biggest premiere of his life had just turned into the hardest night of his heart. The following morning, the entertainment world was on fire. Tabloids across Turkey and Italy had splashed the same headline across their front pages: "What happened behind the curtains at the Sandokan premiere?" No one knew how it happened, no one was supposed to. But somehow, someone had caught it. A short, grainy video clip had begun circulating online in the early hours. At first, people thought it was fake, another fan edit, another fantasy. But the longer they watched, the more they realized it was real. The video showed a blurred figure of Yaman, standing backstage, speaking quietly to a woman in a shimmering silver gown. You couldn't hear their words, but the way they looked at each other told the whole story. The tenderness, the tension, the familiarity, unmistakable. And then someone zoomed in, her face turned slightly toward the camera. Demet. The internet exploded. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everything flooded with clips, theories, and emotional edits. Fan pages wrote, "They met again. After all these years. Look at how he looks at her, it's the same as before. The chemistry never died." By noon, hashtags like #CanAndDemet, #Sandokan and #The Secret Moment were trending worldwide. The video reached millions of views in hours, and journalists started calling it the reunion no one saw coming. Cannes management went into panic mode. Phone calls, meetings, endless debates about whether to issue a statement. "Should we deny it?" his agent asked, but Ken stayed silent. He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it. He just said one sentence: "Let them think what they want." Meanwhile, Demet's phone was blowing up. Friends, reporters, fans, all asking the same thing: "Was it really you?" She ignored every message. She had already deleted most social media from her phone that morning. But the noise was too loud to escape. By evening, paparazzi had camped outside her home in Istanbul. Cameras flashed as soon as she opened the curtains. Some journalists even claimed that producers from Sandokan had contacted her to ask whether she was part of a secret marketing campaign. She wasn't. The truth was simple: she hadn't expected to see him, hadn't planned for the moment, and certainly hadn't meant for the world to see it. But fate, and one badly placed camera, had other plans. In Rome, Ken sat on his balcony, scrolling through his phone. He saw the headlines, the tweets, the slowed-down videos of their look backstage. One clip in particular caught his eye. A fan had added soft piano music under their silent moment, writing in the caption, "No words. Just years of unfinished love." He watched it 5 times. Then he put the phone down and leaned back, closing his eyes. For years, he had lived under the weight of speculation: who he was dating, who he wasn't, what he felt, what he didn't. But this time it was different. Because this time, what the world saw was true. His mother called that night. Her voice was warm, careful. "You know the world won't stop talking about this." He smiled faintly. "They never do." "Do you regret that they saw it?" she asked. He paused, staring out at the night sky. "No," he said quietly. "I regret that it was the only way the truth ever came out." Meanwhile, Demet sat alone by the window, scrolling through the same video. She didn't cry this time. She didn't even flinch. She just whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe the world needed to see what we never said." And perhaps she was right. Because by the next morning, the clip wasn't just gossip, it had become legendary. Entertainment sites called it the moment that stopped the internet. Even global outlets picked it up. Sandokan premiere turns into emotional reunion between ex-co-stars. No one knew what happened next. Did they speak again? Did they meet privately after that night? Or did that silent moment remain their last goodbye? But one thing was certain: the premiere that was supposed to celebrate a TV series had turned into something entirely different. It had become a story of love, regret, and fate, the kind of story that no script could ever write. And somewhere, amid all the noise, 2 people who once promised to never cross paths again found themselves connected once more, not by words, but by a moment the whole world wasn't supposed to see. 2 days had passed since the Sandokan premiere, but the storm hadn't slowed down. It had only grown louder. Every TV channel, every gossip site, every fan page across Europe was talking about one thing: the look, the moment, the backstage secret. The video had been watched more than 10 million times. Theories filled every corner of the internet. Some said it was a reunion, others insisted it was closure. A few even claimed it was a secret scene filmed for Sandokan, a marketing stunt gone viral. But those who knew them, those who had seen that look between Can and Demet years ago, knew better. It wasn't acting. It was real. Inside his Rome apartment, Can sat in silence, the morning light spilling across the floor. His phone buzzed constantly: agents, journalists, even producers asking him to control the narrative. But he ignored them all. He had spent years trying to control stories, trying to correct what people thought they knew. This time, he didn't care. He poured himself a coffee, walked to the window, and looked out at the city that had become both his refuge and his exile. The world was celebrating Sandokan, calling it the role that defined his career, yet all anyone could talk about was the woman who wasn't even in the series. He smiled bitterly. "Maybe that's how it was meant to be," he murmured. Then, his phone vibrated again, a message, short and simple, from unknown number. Text: "The world saw it. Maybe it's time we stop pretending." He stared at the screen for a long moment. The message wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. He knew that voice even in silence. Demet. That single line hit harder than any headline. He typed a reply, then deleted it. Typed again, deleted again. How do you respond to someone who once knew every version of you, the man before fame, before the walls, before the world became so loud? After a long pause, he finally wrote back, "Maybe it's time." Hours later, he boarded a flight to Istanbul, quietly, without security, without his PR team. The tabloids would later report his unexpected trip, but no one knew why he came. No one but her. That evening, the city was quiet. The wind carried the scent of the sea as he drove through the narrow streets, heading toward a familiar neighborhood. He didn't have to think about the address. His heart remembered. She was there, standing outside her apartment, wearing a long coat and no makeup. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she smiled, a real, small, human smile, the kind that didn't belong to actors or headlines, but to 2 people who had finally stopped running. "You came," she said softly. He nodded. "You called." They stood there in silence for a few seconds, no cameras, no lights, no noise. Just them. The same way it had all begun. He took a breath, his voice steady but low. That night, at the premiere. I didn't know they were recording. She shook her head. Neither did I. But maybe it's better this way. The world saw something true for once. He smiled faintly. And they called it a scandal. She laughed quietly, that familiar warmth filling the cold night air. Let them. Maybe truth is always scandalous. He looked at her, really looked, not like the man who once loved her, but like the man,